If you know what the world's thinking, doing, and talking about, you know the decisions to make to grow. If you know the demand, you can plan the supply. And if you have the intelligence at your fingertips, you can move in the moment. If you can extract the signals from the noise, you can see past the data. If you have the intelligence on Germany's tech superstores from last week, then you could optimize your strategy this week. When the consumer data tells you that market X is outperforming market Y, then you know you can outmaneuver your competitors. If you have always-on access to market behavior while you're in California, then you could plan your product launch in India. And if you know your brand performance in China, then you know you can plan for sustainable growth. If you know the early adopters' response to your campaign, you can adjust your media strategy. Or if your country manager is alerted that she could lose market share in Brazil in Q4, she can change course in Q3. If you know what's happening tomorrow, you could transform your business today. At Gfk, knowledge is our currency. We track over 180 million products and process trillions of data points for our clients. We bring decades of independent wisdom and expertise to the table, supplying the critical resources to help businesses thrive through turbulent times. Trust, forged from powerful global partnerships, consulting services that trigger ideas and action, redefining industry practice and standards. If you know exactly when you need to know, then you can move with conviction. At GfK, we know.
A very good morning, all of you, from Singapore. My name is Björn Krug. I work for GfK, and I'm leading GfK's customer success management in Asia. Today, I want to speak with you about the technical consumer goods market and trying to give a very careful outlook into what we think is happening in the remaining month in 2021. Now, all of us had experience with lockdowns, have been affected ourselves as business professionals and as individuals by the COVID-19 crisis. As professionals between those lockdowns, we have seen booming demand for specific categories, and we have even seen that this booming demand might have now something to do with component shortages. So today's session is dedicated to review this market and to analyze what we can learn from between the lockdowns, booming demand, and component shortages. With that, let me share with you a few thoughts before we go into more details. I might sound very bold when I'm sharing with you here that I think that technical consumer goods, TCG, is the place to be. I caution this when I say, if you can manage the volatility. Ever since the COVID-19 crisis hit our markets, forecasting was made virtually impossible as we had a completely new, unprecedented situation in the coming week. Nothing was predictable, nothing was really stable, and incredibly difficult to manage. Now, 1 year later, I think we have gained a lot more experience, we have learned much more, but maybe you agree with me that even now, COVID-19 redefines our reality and still makes forecasting a very, very specific challenge. We have thankfully seen massive recovery in many, many markets since mid last year, and this recovery seems to continue. And in the technical consumer goods space, this is, in my view, related to the fact that the in-home focus of consumers has turned around our industry. We have seen previously unthinkable growth rates in 2020 and 2021 despite the crisis. And the question is now, will this growth continue? Will there be more volatility, same volatility in the market? And going a bit more into the details, what we will see, will there be a recovery of smartphone products? Will there be continuous strong demand for IT and office products? And lastly, if consumers have simply pulled forward demand in 2020 and 2021, does this mean that we already need to start planning for a softening of the growth in the months to come? I think all of us are reading the news. All of us have our very individual and personal experience with the COVID-19 pandemic. What we have seen from the very first cases in China at the beginning of last year, the declaration of a pandemic by the WHO, that more and more markets have been affected, the tremendous increase of the infection rates in the US and in Latin America, the peaks and spikes of infections in Europe before we actually went into the renewed spikes that we have seen, unfortunately, in the last couple of months, specifically in India. Now, it would be naive to think that with the peak that you see here on the right-hand side, easing, the numbers coming down again, that we have seen everything here in the market. With new strains, with restrictions ending, with maybe Europe going into the autumn and into the winter period, I personally think that we will see resurgence of cases in many markets, and we just need to be prepared for a renewed sense of lockdowns and restrictions when this happens. When we leave this overview and we go into what I mentioned before, the pandemic has changed the way consumers live and work. They stay at home more and more. How has this translated into the demand for technical consumer goods? Now, what you see here is a global overview of the market value in the categories that we track in GfK. About 46% of the market is coming from telecom product, smart and feature phones, for example. And you see that also with nearly 18% in yellow here, major domestic appliances such as refrigerators, washing machines, aircon devices are a critical element in the technical consumer goods space. Where we have obviously seen a lot of change is in the information technology space. You see this here in green with 15.3%, and also in consumer electronics with nearly 10% of the market. Now, the question is, how much is this actually worth in terms of growth rates compared to last year? And you see here that all of these categories, all of these segments have seen tremendous growth in the first quarter 2021 compared to 2020. Not a surprise at all, as globally we are comparing a first quarter 2021 with a market severely affected by the first wave of lockdowns 1 year ago. The total market, as we are monitoring it, has reached again a level of nearly $220 billion US, and on aggregate, we are seeing that this is a growth of nearly 31% compared to last year. And echoing a bit again what I mentioned in one of the first slides, this is what I feel one of the key elements of volatility. We have to get used to the fact that markets and segments will be showing these dramatic changes in the market, which makes it very difficult to predict, which makes it very difficult to forecast. If we compare these growth rate that you have seen with 35% globally on the left-hand side, let's now put our attention a bit on the Asian market. You see that in the developed Asian markets, for example, Japan, Taiwan, we are seeing growth of around 17%. In China, we are seeing a growth at the moment of 57%. And that is, I think, needs a bit more explanation. If we isolate the 2020 period and we just see with this exceptional situation in China, how does the market look like if I compare 2021 with 2019? I still see a net increase of 24%. So despite all of the crisis, despite all of the challenges, China is still the growth motor for technical consumer goods here in Asia and obviously globally. Now, in emerging Asia, which also includes a number of countries in Southeast Asia, we see a similar trend, around 21% growth compared to last year. So 30% growth globally, but all of the regions seem to participate with especially strong growth in China. I mentioned before that the growth did not come from all segments at the same time. What you see here on the slide is, again, the development in the first quarter 2021 and the overall growth of 31% that I mentioned before. But now we want to look a bit more carefully into where does the growth come from. Now, at the bottom, the sheer size of the business, the sales in billion US dollars, and then on the other axis, the growth rate compared to last year. Now, what you see is that in the first 3 months, 2021, telecom has seen a renaissance. We see strong growth in the market over and above what we see in other categories. And the consumer electronics, and well as small domestic appliances, who had seen a lot of growth in the years before, are still positive, but they are falling a bit behind this enormous surge that we see in the other categories. Now, all of us probably had to face a situation last year where we were forced to work from home. And many of us will have required some more preparation, maybe buying another monitor, investing in a printer, buying another laptop and peripherals to help us going through this. What I find is very interesting is that the growth of information technology continues. We still have double-digit growth in information technology, despite a very, very strong performance in 2020. And I called out to you before that consumers do not only work from home, they spend more and more time at home, they cook at home. And so it's not a surprise that major domestic appliances, for example, for storage, for example, for carrying a much higher load of washing as your family all stays at home, is amongst the key growth drivers in 2021 with a growth rate of nearly 40%, as you can see here. I want to share with you a few thoughts on this and try to structure these trends, hopefully, in a meaningful way. Now, what you see here on the slide are a few elements of how this new reality, this new normal feels. And in GfK, we call this the at-home themes. There is obviously the home office at home, where the majority of opportunities will present themselves in the mobile computing space, in computer accessories, also to a certain extent in the smartphone recovery. But to give another element of computer accessories in this sense, with wireless headsets as consumers in their function as a business professional, like me today, for example, can't be in a meeting room with everyone, but will go through a video conference. And so the demand, I think, in equipment that puts you in a position to work on this for the rest of the year and in the many, many months to come, will position and give us more opportunities in this space. Also, there are significant restrictions in movement in many countries, specifically here in Southeast Asia. So if you can't dine outside, if you can't go to your preferred and favorite restaurant, you will spend more time at home preparing food for you and your loved ones. This will again position and give us opportunities also in this space. So thinking about food preparation, fryers, smaller domestic appliances that I feel will present opportunities in the months to come. But going a bit again into the more IT-related topic, into the entertainment, with cinemas, with entertainment venues in a broader sense, either still being closed or a bit more difficult to reach and to visit, I think we will still have quite a bit of opportunities in the in-home entertainment area. We still feel that gaming PCs, gaming accessories will position and give us a major opportunity in 2021. And there are even crossovers. So there is a surge in demand for gaming headsets, and they are not necessarily always being used by gamers. They are going back into the office at home section, where people want to use a very high performant headset to help them navigating through the video conferences. We have also seen last year a strong demand in TV sets. People have been upgrading their TV in order to enjoy entertainment at home. And if they haven't done it yet, I feel that this is an opportunity this year to now have accessories on TVs, such as soundbars, upselling on the last year's TV upgrades. And while not completely IT related, I want to share with you also that style at home and health at home are, in our view, areas and themes that we need to bear in mind, be that the fact that people can't go to a hairdresser, can't go to their preferred outlet and shop. So we have seen quite some growth last year and also this year in styling products. And make no mistake, with the pandemic still being very, very present to all of us, there will be also requirements for health at home, where people are interested in looking at smartwatches, for example, that have blood oxygen trackers, blood pressure trackers, and health more in the sense of well-being at home, where these devices allow you for sleep tracking, where people invest in air treatment devices to feel more comfortable and more safe at home. Now, all of this will present growth opportunities to us, as home is, and in my view, will remain the new headquarter for many of the consumers and shoppers in the market. I want to now change the perspective a bit and look a bit more into the components that are fueling this growth. GfK's own supply chain and industry market analytics team has shared some of these observations and findings here. We all know that the demand for these products I mentioned before, the surge in demand in some specific industries, has led to shortages in some of the components, be that the processors, be that some other components. And where there's a shortage, there is a fluctuation in price. If you are in the market for IT products, if you are in the market for TV products, you will have seen, I think, already a surge in prices in panels and processors. So the question is, what has really happened, and what do we feel as the supply chain and industry analytics team, what actions we see in the market? Generally, we feel that there is a risk of panel TVs with a softening demand, specifically in developed markets. Why is that the case? There is only so many TVs that you can spend time with in your home. And if you have just upgraded to a new device, then you might have pulled the demand forward last year. And with opening or reopening of social venues in the developed markets, this might actually take over in terms of priority before in-home entertainment. Also, in the not developed markets, in the emerging markets, we see increasingly a risk of a negative economic outlook. And if this translates indeed into lower consumer confidence, this might circle back and hit us in the panel TV market. Last but not least, the component shortage and high panel costs are forcing players to consider increases. Now, if I need to increase my price in a market where I have demand pulled forward before, where I might have a erosion of consumer confidence, I will have an additional impact, especially for lower end and smaller size models. Now, what does it mean? What do we expect in terms of actions? In order to compensate for the component price increases, we foresee the brands will very likely focus on larger screens, will focus on premium features. A few examples I'm sharing with you here. Ultimately, to work on profitability amidst increased competition, high component costs, as I said before, and increasingly a saturated TV market. However, we will see deviations from that. Japan, for example, could be a very welcome exception from the rule, where as we see promotions for the Tokyo Olympics being discussed, we might see a market in Japan that continues growth compared to last year. Now, where there's challenges, there will be opportunities. If everyone goes into the premium section, well, the question is who claims a stake in value offerings. So if you're able to manage your margin, if you're able to manage the volatility here, there might actually be an attractive opportunity in the TV market offering smaller screens, maybe entry-level models for the consumers who want to upgrade but are on a budget. There's also opportunities to just change the perspective. We might be looking at projectors who have been rising in terms of the picture quality, also the affordability in the last couple of months. And maybe we see projectors as a screen alternative with good quality. And as I mentioned before, it's not just about the screen itself. There might be complementary components like loudspeakers, soundbars, that could work together with the already existing high-end screens in consumer households and give us a growth opportunity. If we look at mobile computing in the supply chain and industry market analytics team, we believe that this will see continued growth. We do not see that there is a trend change away from the home office or away from home entertainment. We believe that in this specific segment, this growth will continue. Demand for notebooks and media books still benefit from remote working, and also among students and pupils from remote learning in schools. We might even see the media tablet market further benefit as we expect from school-related procurements positive push in the quarters, especially in developed Asia. And last but not least, we have seen for 4 consecutive years now a trend to high-end notebooks, and there is at the moment nothing that makes us believe that this growth will discontinue. We will see some actions in the market in terms of component upgrades, mainly on SSD, the hybrid attach rate, also the average NAND content. So this is something that will lead a bit to a slowdown for media tablets, as here, for educational purposes, you might not need a high-end product. It might be sufficient to access the content for learning on an average or entry-level tablet. We expect to see, and that's a bit of a headwind here, desktops, all-in-ones demand to continue the decreasing trend. Nothing really totally new. We have seen this in the years before. Now, what I want to highlight here again are the opportunities to explore beyond the devices themselves, specifically the peripherals, accessories to ride on the purchase of a laptop, which might be a high-quality headset that you want to do to run your teleconferences, and highlighting again the connected growth also in higher-end gaming laptops. Last but not least, talking about smartphones and telecom products here. We expect actually in 2021 quite a bit of recovery in the smartphone segment, but in line with what we've seen with panel TVs and what we've also highlighted for laptops, we will see a trend to pricier, more sophisticated phones. Again, something that will be riding on offsetting increased cost of components. So 2021 will definitely see a turnaround in demand for smartphones as the markets gradually come out of the lockdowns. We will see this growth coming back to us. Make no mistake, recurring outbreaks will put a dip to this, so the market will remain volatile. But with the component prices on the rise, we expect that the average selling price is to increase steadily, benefiting especially higher-end products. And this might even come, as I said at the very beginning of the market, from boosts out of China, where consumers are interested in feature upgrades, And I also feel that we might benefit from the improving 5G penetration globally, where there's then more of an incentive to upgrade to a device that enables you using that functionality very well. So feature improvements on smartphones are expected to be propelling us forward, as I said, mostly by China. We see at the moment a lot of this revolving around the display itself, the camera, the charging technology, essentially improvements that have a very, very tangible benefit from a consumer standpoint. Well, and similar to what I shared with you for panel TVs, if everyone moves into high-end, into pricier options, we then need to decide, well, what about consumers on a budget? So if you can manage the margin, I personally feel there's still an attractive business to be made in the more entry level, in the value offerings. I think what is important for us to do here, though, is to adapt to local market realities. That involves analyzing the 5G penetration in the market you're in. That also, and I think, makes it necessary to review, as the brand you are, as the channel partner you are, what premium devices fit best with your desired shopper and consumer base. Now, leaving the more component-related view aside, let's move back to looking at a few channel, country, and portfolio trends. So far, I've spoken with you a lot about the global demand and the global trends. What I want to share with you here is how the developed and emerging markets, especially in Asia and in LATAM, will be differentiating. We believe and have seen that in the first part of 2021, especially the emerging markets have seen tremendous growth against the last year after an arguably very, very tough market in 2020. So the area we are in here will very likely benefit from increased growth, offsetting, hopefully, the decline that we have seen in 2020. If we compare this a bit with the channels and with the areas where this growth comes from, I want to show you here on the slide something that is probably a very well-known fact, but you see here from 2018 to 2019, 2020, and 2021, always in the first quarter of a year, the share in TCG coming from e-commerce channels. And you have seen that until 2020, online e-commerce has been steadily growing every year, everywhere. But as we are moving into 2021, we have seen a tectonic shift in some of the markets. If you look at Western Europe, for example, at Latin America, even Eastern Europe, you have seen how dramatic the share change is for online sales in the market. Developed Asia and emerging Asia at the same time seems to be more on a steady growth. We haven't seen these tectonic shifts yet. We are on an overall lower level of e-commerce share in the market, but it's safe to say that the growth will continue, even though it hasn't reached the sheer size that we have seen in some other markets. Interestingly, in China, you see that China, obviously, in 2020, had seen a similar surge when nearly half of the TCG market, technical consumer good market, was actually online. The share of online has come down in China in the first 3 months of 2021. And I want to use this as a bit of a pointer to what we might see in the other markets as we move forward through 2021 and as we see, hopefully, restrictions continuing to ease. What you see on this slide is, again, a view on the total TCG market, technical consumer good market, where we just look at the growth rates year on year. At the moment, you see in darker blue the total market, and then you see the growth rate that we have seen in 2019 and 2020. Now, as we are going into this, let's look at the development of traditional retail. You have seen with the first waves of lockdown, obviously, traditional retail has had a tremendous, probably never observed challenge in the market. It remained a challenge. Obviously, we could recover from the lockdowns and hovered around, let's say, zero growth for most part of 2020. Online retailing obviously being on the rise, but you see now in 2021, as the lockdowns come closer to an end, as there's less and less restrictions, how the growth rate in traditional retail jumps. And this makes me believe that there is a, let's call it maybe a renaissance of offline, of traditional retail, as consumers are interested in going back into stores, experience products and experience stores in a very different way. They are experiencing shopping in an online environment. Let's look at this specifically for the Southeast Asian markets. What you see on the left-hand side are the online growth rates in 2020 and 2021. This is brand new information, as GfK has invested heavily in researching and auditing online channels in Southeast Asia. What you see in 2020 is unprecedented growth. These are growth rates here of nearly 200% in some of the markets. And obviously, with such a surge in 2020, we are not really expecting this to continue on the same level, but you see that in 2021, still we see double-digit growth in the Southeast Asian for Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And similar to what I've shared with you in the slides before, we see the tremendous challenges 2020 has brought to many markets. In countries like Singapore or in Thailand, where we have seen very, very strict lockdowns in 2020, circuit breakers, we have seen that this left its mark in the 2020 growth rates. And I think it's then reassuring to see that in 2021, the markets recover. Singapore, for example, traditional retail offline, 23% up. In Indonesia, 23% up. Thailand, 13% up. And markets like Indonesia or Vietnam with less restrictive movement controls in 2020 obviously had less of a challenge last year. Nonetheless, there is a resurgence, there is a renaissance to offline retail with the 2021 growth rates that you see here. I think it's important to dive a bit deeper into the development here in Southeast Asia. Now, while we are seeing strong growth, often double-digit growth in the markets, we in Singapore here understand that this is partly coming from more and more brands, more and more SKUs, products being listed in the e-commerce channel. Actually, in Singapore, according to our numbers, it's the first time that we have more items, more products available online compared to the offline channel in 2020. Indonesia is one of the fastest growing markets. Here we are now nearly having a quarter of the market in online. And equally here, that seems to be coming from the sheer amount of new products being available for purchase online. More and more brands enter online, while it seems that it's trending down in the offline channel a bit. Thailand, also two-digit growth and strong growth in Vietnam, even though here it is the lowest share that we have in the Southeast Asian four. So important to remember, online still on the rise, significant share in a lot of markets seems to be driven by the fact that more and more brands enter, position their brand in the online space, make more products available online. Let me come to a summary of today's session. I think we have seen very, very clearly the opportunities that present themselves from consumers staying at home, trying to ensure health and well-being at home. I still think IT products, IT accessories will remain incredibly strong. I've spoken about the headsets. I called out also the opportunities coming from gaming on upgrades to in-home entertainment, riding on the TVs with audio home systems, soundbars, for example. Even though not IT related, I think it always makes sense to look at a consumer in a comprehensive fashion. And we have to realize that home cooking, food preparation will remain a topic for consumers to look at in stores in the months to come. Equally, managing and monitoring your health, be that oximeters, blood pressure monitors, and any devices that help you addressing health concerns, for example, air treatment products. This will be presenting opportunities for us in the months to come. Component shortage will impact the pricing. I have shown you what we have gathered as insights in our supply chain teams. And to make it very clear, those shortages and price increases are reality. They will accelerate the drive to premium and higher end devices. But once again, if everyone moves into premium, who takes care? Who claims a stake in the value segment? So if you can manage the margin, if you can manage the offering, this will be an attractive segment to follow up on. And last but not least, I've shown you a few examples on how the growth differentiates between channels, between countries. I believe that Asia, especially emerging Asia, is projected for growth this year. I also believe that we should prepare ourselves for a renaissance of in-store experience as consumers are keen and interested after more than a year of online experience to go back into a store and experience brands and offerings there. And while this might be true, we have online on such a high share level that's important for us to monitor what portfolio really works online, what portfolio works online. I have shown you that in many markets, online growth is fueled with more and more brands going online, with more products being available. This in turn will increase competition, also price competition, as these larger assortments compete in online. And in turn, this will present opportunities for you who manage this volatility, who manage this price competition really, really well. And of course, it will present opportunities also in the offline space, in the offline retail. With that, let me close my session for this morning. I hope that you found this useful. Please get in touch with Gates, get in touch with GfK if you would like to know more. And I do hope that you all stay safe, stay in good health, and that you have an opportunity to meet offline in the weeks and months to come. Thank you very much. Have a very good weekend ahead.